All right, we are recording.
All right. Well, hey, everyone. I'm Mark Cerniglia from Spotlight Branding. We've got Jana here as well. And today we're going to walk all of you through what makes a good marketing plan, specifically focused on law firms and kind of what we think makes a good marketing plan for a law firm. Although, honestly, I think the content's pretty universally applicable. And so we kind of have a presentation we'll take you through. It's called The Anatomy of a Good Marketing Plan. And I'm really excited to walk through this with you all and with Jana. Because I think that, everyone has a marketing plan, even if it's just in their head. But there really is that age-old quote of, failing to plan is planning to fail. And so I think that creating a strong marketing plan and really having it organized and put together, to some degree, it's less about if you're doing the right marketing and actually just having an organized plan in the first place might even be more important in a lot of cases. So, Jan, anything before we dive in?
I don't think so. I'm excited to dive into this, and I've seen what we're going to talk about. But I think this is one of the juicier ones that we've done. So I'm
absolutely, and obviously, and Jana's worked with us for a really long time. She's worked in our marketing department, and so happy to have you here and kind of chime in from both your marketing experience point of view, and then also you've also talked to a lot of lawyers over the years, and so kind of knowing maybe where some of their blind spots are and things like that. So I look forward to your commentary. But yes, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So we've got four things we're going to talk about today. There's really kind of four pieces to the anatomy of a good marketing plan. You guys can see them on the screen right now, but those things are what are you doing? When are you doing it? And then how much is it going to cost you? But then, what do you think is going to happen, right? Some sort of idea of like, what's the goal? What result are we aiming for? These things might seem obvious, but, I think if you're watching this webinar or this clip, the thing I would encourage you to ask yourself is, do you actually have something written right now that you could pull up within 30 seconds? Where when it comes to your marketing, where these questions are answered. So, and usually the case is no. Fair enough, right?
Sure. I think so.
I mean, Jana, Jana actually has done sales for a long time at Spotlight Branding. So, I mean, you in some ways, you've probably talked to more attorneys than me. I mean, do you have any sense of how many of the people you talk to could actually already have these kinds of things answered, written somewhere?
Written down, I think a very, very small amount. I think a lot of it is just swirling in their minds, or articulated in different areas, maybe to different people that are executing parts of it. But a full written out plan, I think, is very uncommon.
And we're gonna. So I think two things. If you're someone that does have a written marketing plan, fantastic. I think that this session today will maybe, I hope, help you dot some I's, cross some T's, maybe kind of refine it a little bit. And if you don't have one written, I really believe that, in the next, 30, 40 minutes, something like that, we're going to hopefully make it seem easy. I mean, that's really my goal today, is to make a marketing plan seem easy. We even have a template we'll show you in a bit that you could use. But my hope is to make these four sections seem easy, and for you to kind of see why answering these four questions will also then make your marketing better. So hopefully it's a win-win. So, all right, let's dive in.
Okay.
All right. So step one, what is it that you're doing? So this is kind of, we're going to divide this into kind of two different sections. One is just literally answering the question, what marketing you're doing, or what marketing do you want to be doing, right? And that alone would make a marketing plan, even just writing those things down. But the other thing that I think is key to a good marketing plan is potentially creating categories for your different marketing initiatives, and then actually putting those marketing initiatives in those categories. And we'll talk about that here in a second as well. But Jana, let's go ahead and dive into the next slide and actually talk about your current marketing. So like I said, if you're watching this right now, you could even pause this. You could pull out a notepad, open up a Google Doc, whatever, and literally just dump anything you can think of that you're currently doing marketing wise, right? Any campaigns you're currently doing, any marketing initiatives, maybe anything you want to do coming up. And really, believe it or not, you have the beginning of a marketing plan. But let's go to the next slide, because these are the kinds of things ideally that you might have on your marketing plan. Jana, I can talk about these, but I want to give you some airtime as well. Anything you want to say about some of the things on this list?
I think that while they're all incredibly important, I do think that there is probably a hierarchy, and a lot of it is based on both the time that you have available for things like the networking events and the bar association events, and some of them are going to cost you more financially, which we'll get into the cost of these both time, resources, and finances a little bit later. But I think part of it is going to be dependent on where you are in your firm stage of life. Do you have more time to devote? Do you have more resources to devote, maybe manpower, or do you have more money to devote to some of these? And I think that
Mm.
a marketing plan can be very fluid and change as those resource allotments change too.
Yeah, that's a great point. This, number one, this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. This is all of 10 things that exist in the world of marketing, and obviously there's a lot more than that. But these are just some examples to get y'all's wheels turning of not only the kinds of things that should be in your marketing plan, but also maybe just the kinds of things you might want to entertain down the road. Spotlight Branding, we only do even a couple of things that are on this list, right? Like for our clients, we do social media, we do blogging, we do video shoots, we do podcasts, we do email newsletters. But like we don't do Google ads, we don't do Facebook ads. We're believers in those things, but just like you might focus on a certain practice area, we kind of focus on the content side of marketing versus trying to be good kind of at every practice area of marketing. But more importantly, whether you're doing 2 things on this list or 7 of them or whatever, these are the kinds of things that should be on your marketing plan. So just to kind of point out a couple nuances here that might not be obvious, you've got some things on here that would be kind of ongoing marketing campaigns. So things like social media or blogging or an email newsletter, you're probably doing these things on an ongoing basis. They're evergreen. Once you start, you probably don't ever stop, right? Whether you're blogging once a month or twice a month, you're probably doing that in perpetuity. Things like Google ads or Facebook ads, you might do them for a quarter to test them out. If they're working well, you might do them on a recurring basis, or you might only do them in slow times of the year. Just kind of depends. And then things like a video shoot or a website redesign, that's just as often as you need to do those things. Maybe you're doing a video shoot once a year or once a quarter to create some new videos for your marketing. Maybe you're redoing your website every 2 or 3 or 4 years, but that's still a marketing event taking place, right? And then the other thing I want to point out, and then Jana, if you've got any thoughts, feel free to add on, or we can move on to the next slide, but is I want to make sure everyone also recognizes that the networking that you do, the bar associations you're part of, anything you attend, any events you attend, whether it's a networking event or a conference you go to or some sort of association you're part of, that stuff is still part of your marketing and should be on your marketing plan, because you are developing referral relationships there. You're networking. You might get clients depending on the nature of it. But those things should absolutely be on your marketing plan, because that really is part of business development. So anything to add, Jana, or are we ready for the next slide?
I think we're ready for the next slide, and I'll just echo that this is certainly not a comprehensive list. There's tons of things I'm sure that are on here that or that aren't on here that you can be doing as well.
Yeah, but we can do another webinar if anybody out there wants one. We can do one about maybe all the different things you might want to consider for your marketing plan. But the goal of today is to really help you feel like you know how to create a marketing plan. In other words, how it's organized is more important than what's on it. That is kind of the mantra of today. Okay, so said the other way, right? What's on your marketing plan sometimes is not as important as how well it's organized. And when we get into some of these later steps, like budget and like what do you want it to accomplish, that's going to hopefully make a little bit more sense. I think for all of you out there watching, if you get more serious about organizing your marketing and planning it, I think you'll be actually pleasantly surprised. Not to say that what you do marketing wise doesn't matter, or doing this thing isn't better than doing this thing, because it might be. But But I think one of the biggest problems with most businesses, not just law firms, is a lack of organization around marketing efforts. And that's why a lot of law firms have these peaks and valleys, because you do some marketing and then things are good, and then you take your foot off the gas and things slow down, and a marketing plan can solve a lot of that. So those were just a few examples in the last slide, but getting into that organizational mindset, I think one of the most important things you can do is create categories for your marketing. Now, this is definitely an optional step. Okay. You could just put all of your marketing on a marketing plan, and you could do the steps that are to come, which are to organize it by time, like quarter, figure out budget, figure out, results or projections. You could skip categories, but I think categories really help for a variety of reasons. So let's kind of talk about a couple examples, and I think we have another slide after this one, right, where we kind of give a few tips for categorization. But Janet, tell us about some of these categories that are on here, and I guess also, like, these are suggested categories, right?
Yes, they are. And I think that if the idea of creating a marketing plan to begin with is daunting, starting with broader categories, knowing that you can always, get more specific over time, is a great place to start, because it can be very overwhelming to even know where to begin. So these are a couple examples here of, potential places to start. Content marketing, surprise, we're huge advocates for that one. And a lot of the elements that are in this one here, we both do, but I think are very foundational. And I would probably start with, maybe aside from like the networking and events, I would definitely start there versus some paid advertising, but
And
that might be a
let
different.
me just add real quick too, and I think actually I'm glad content marketing is on here first. I mean, yeah, we're a little biased, that's what we do, but it's also a great example of how you don't have to be rigid with categories. So you could have a category called content marketing, and anything you do with content could be in there, like you see on the screen, right? Blogs, videos, social media. But all that really matters is how it all makes sense in your head. You might prefer to have a social media category all on its own, and everything social media goes into that category. And you might prefer to put blogs and video somewhere else. I mean, I think at Spotlight Branding, how many categories do we call them channels, but how many categories do we have? I want to say we have like 13.
Channels, I was gonna say, might be even closer to 20. Somewhere in there for the larger ones.
And to be honest with you, I'm not even actually suggesting that that's a great idea. I think that I have days at Spotlight Branding where I'm like, I wish we had like 7. And think things would be a little bit simpler. So we've got kind of 5 categories on the screen here that are kind of a suggested starting point that you could fit most things into. But if you are thinking of something in your head and you don't see a place for it to fall up here, you could create a category for it, right? But what you don't need to do is you don't need to have a category that is like Google Ads, because that should fall into a larger category of like pay-per-click advertising or digital ads, or on here we called it paid advertising, right? You don't have to have a category called Facebook, right? That could fall into your social media category or your content marketing category. So these are some examples. Jana, anything else to add?
I will say that when it comes to, and we'll talk about it later, but when it comes to like planning ahead, I think that having those broader categories are going to be really helpful, in the event that you may not know specifically what you want to do, but you have an idea of some form of marketing you may want to do at a certain time. So knowing you can always create subcategories or more specifics afterwards, and starting broad would probably be my recommendation.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And also, I think like recognizing that there's a lot of crossover. So getting the categorization perfect isn't as important as just doing it. To give you guys like a simple example, and hopefully it doesn't make you crack and want to leave the webinar. But like, okay, like take social media for example. There's actually a lot of things you can do on social media, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. You can actually publish content, right? Like your actual presence. You can also run ads though, and that's actually a different function on social media. And then, believe it or not, I mean, depending, like if you're B2B, like if you're a business attorney or something like that, you might want to do more with LinkedIn. And then there's like LinkedIn groups that you could actually be involved in, like, LinkedIn business groups and things like that. And so if you're doing, I'm not saying you should be doing all of those things, but if you are, all of a sudden your marketing plan can get confusing in your head, because you're like, well, all of that's LinkedIn. So should I put all of that under social media? And however you want to do it is fine. There's actually no wrong answer. Like me personally, I'm actually going to put like if I was running like Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads, I like to have a paid ads category. So I'm going to put my social media ads in the same place as Google ads. Okay. My actual Facebook content, like my post and my LinkedIn post, I'm going to put that in either a social media category or a content marketing category. The reason I like to do it that way is I also, and this is not something that necessarily is like we do 100% of the time, but I also like to look at my categories a little bit based on what their primary purpose is. A paid advertising category for me has to generate leads. That's what its job is. But a content marketing category or like a social media category, I think that category is a little bit more about branding, a little bit more about nurturing my existing network, my existing contacts. So I don't have the same expectations of everything in that category as I might with another. So that's another thing to consider. Sometimes is you might group things just because they're alike in general. You also might group things because they're similar in kind of what you're aiming for, right? So
I love that.
But there is no wrong way. It just kind of, I think, I almost wish there was, but the bottom line is whether you have 3 categories, 5 or 12, just create them and kind of get going, and you can always change them as you go. So I think, why don't you jump to the next slide, Jana, and if you kind of want to summarize some of the nuggets from this. I think we hit on some of them, but why don't you kind of summarize this for us? And if I've got anything to add, I'll throw it in.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great point, because at first glance, having all aspects of social media under one category does make a lot of sense. But I think knowing the purpose and the intention behind that campaign is another really great way to do it. And so there is no right or wrong way. Like Mark said, it would kind of be nice if there was, because then there wouldn't be those questions of where to put somebody or some sort of initiative. But I do think they're huge for organization. I am a very big proponent of having things organized in the right place and being able to look at that data. So I think when it comes to later on, when we talk about measuring results, having these categories is going to be so insanely helpful in being able to measure what's working, what's not, how to make improvements. And again, anything can be changed. I know that's one of Mark's things that he'll say is, we can always reverse a decision. We can always change things up. So don't feel like you're locked into whatever you decide at the beginning on the categories as well.
Right. And so we kind of talked about, like, there's no right or wrong way to categorize, which is kind of that second bullet on the screen there. But what I haven't really touched on is that first bullet of why categories are important beyond what we've already said. And I think this is a little bit of where the magic is in categorization. So I think there's 2 other benefits to not just throwing all of your stuff on one list, but instead kind of breaking it up into sections. One of those is it actually will help you think of other opportunities sometimes. So when you take a category like content marketing and maybe you're blogging, okay? But sometimes when you're sitting down to work on your marketing plan, that's something you might want to do like once a quarter, even if it's just for an hour, okay? You might look at that category and you might go, what else could we be doing in this category? And you go, oh, okay, man, in content marketing, when there's also email, there's also podcasting, there's video. You might look at a paid advertising category and realize there's more than just Google ads out there, right? Like there's social media ads. You might have a print marketing category, and you might go, gosh, like, should we do something in the world of print marketing? Like, should we send any flyers or postcards or things like that? And again, I'm not saying yes or no, but just so you know, there are plenty of attorneys that still do physical marketing like that. If you're into billboards, you could put that into your print category. because that's a different form of print advertising, but it all kind of falls into that same bucket, that same category. So I like categories too, because it helps you kind of brainstorm a little bit and think through like what other kinds of marketing are out there in these different categories. Or it also helps you figure out what categories you might be light in or imbalanced in. And just to be clear, we're not like, Jana, if you can you go back a slide real quick? Like, we're actually not suggesting that you have to do a lot of marketing in all 5 of these categories. And like I even said, I mean, there's some things that aren't even on the screen right now, right? Like print marketing, okay, or radio, if that's something that that could be appealing to you in your market. But what I do want to make sure everyone understands is, like, seeing these categories hopefully gets your wheels turning of what you could be doing in these categories. And while you don't necessarily have to be doing something all the time in all of them, if all of your marketing is just in one of these or 2 of these, it is good to step back and go, okay, like, should I consider diversifying my portfolio, so to speak? Because that's kind of what these categories are. They're different marketing portfolios. One might be a long-term investment. The other might be a short-term investment. The other might be the emergency savings account. So you kind of think about these as a portfolio, and you start to think about, how you might want to be diversified, right? So
That's a great point. And I will say that as you're kind of planning things out, on the imbalanced or heavy aspect, maybe you notice, wow, for Q3 I was planning to do Facebook ads and Google ads, but I have nothing in the paid advertising category in Q2, and so it just gives you that chance to kind of look at it on that broader scale to know where you may want to make some adjustments. And make sure that it is more balanced, or potentially even hitting peak seasons. I know, as attorneys, there's certainly times of the year when they're more hot, when you have more people coming in. And so maybe it helps you to know when you should be spending more money and resources for certain lead generation efforts during the slower seasons.
and like, I think that a lot of you probably already are doing some of this in your head. Like, again, like, I don't, if by any chance you're on this journey with us so far and this seems elementary to you at all, number one, stay with us, because I think each step it's a little bit more nuanced. But like, also, I would challenge you to ask yourself whether or not you really have all the categories on your marketing plan, even if they're empty. Which is okay if they're empty. We have that on our own marketing plan. We have empty categories, but they're there because we want to make sure that we're still always thinking about those categories, so that when something makes sense, we're ready, or so that we don't miss something, because we're always at least asking ourselves the question of, what could we be doing in this area? What could we be doing in that area? What about this area? And so I think that cadence and that reminder is really helpful. But let's kind of talk about where we go from here. So I told you guys we'd hopefully make this easier for you. We do have a free marketing plan template if you want to download it. This is a screenshot of it. I believe it's 2 pages. This is one of the pages. It has some instructions on it. If you want that, it's free. There's no strings attached or anything. Just go to spotlightbranding.com/marketing plan. And I think we'll drop that in the chat as well if anybody wants it. But this is like a template that you could fill out, and or that you could just use for inspiration and kind of go build your own. But you'll see we've already put some of these categories on there. We've actually changed the language. Like, the language is a little bit different on this than what you even saw on the previous slide. To be honest with you, that's just because we created this template maybe a year ago, right? And these slides are new, but we didn't overthink trying to match it up perfectly, honestly, to kind of make the point a little bit of, like, it doesn't really matter, again, how you do the categories, but this is a suggested categorization that we think makes sense for law firms. You'll see we got a little bit more specific in the language we used. Like, we actually have a content nurturing category, because, kind of like I told you earlier, we think that's the main goal of content, is to be more of a nurturing aspect, as where that digital ads category or that networking and referrals category at the top, those might be the ones where you more generate leads from. Okay. But if you do a lot of email marketing and you don't want email to be under content nurturing, because that's where it is right now, you want email to be its own category, by all means, go for it. But we've got this template, and we're going to reference this template a couple more times just as a visual aid. But I'm going to show you guys how you could fill out a template like this, or potentially one on your own. Okay.
And I did put that link in the chat, and if you are watching this recorded after the fact, we'll make sure that it's in the email as well, so you're able to access it.
Perfect. All right. So again, 4 steps. Step 1 was your marketing plan has to answer what you're doing. But the next thing ideally that it's going to do is answer when you're doing it. Okay. So what's the chronology of your marketing plan? So we can jump to the next slide. Keep this pretty simple. I think this should be broken down monthly or quarterly. I actually like quarterly. I think it's a little bit more simple, right? But if you like monthly more, you could do that. But I really like breaking down your marketing plan into either months or quarters. I don't know if this is going to sound daunting or not to those watching, but I would also challenge you to do it 12 months out. Okay. So if you're doing it quarterly, then, and that's actually what we have on that template that we'll show you again here in a minute, but you're always projecting the current quarter and the next 4 quarters. And I think some of the keys to doing this well, and where it doesn't have to seem intimidating, is you can always just pencil stuff in. You can always just guess. I really hope to do a little bit more networking in quarter 3. So I'm going to pencil that in. I'd really like to start doing Google Ads at some point in the next year. So I'm going to pencil that in next quarter or maybe even, 3 quarters from now. I know we're already blogging, but I know I want to blog more, or, I want to start, we're on social media, but my kids keep telling me we got to be on TikTok. So we're going to start a TikTok just so they stop annoying me. I don't know. Right. And so you pencil in TikTok on your marketing plan. Either way, this is an exercise you could do once a month, once a quarter. I don't think it has to take long. You could sit down for an hour and you just update it. And then the really cool thing is that if you do this, then once a quarter, you're really only tacking on another quarter, right? And then revising the other quarters that you've already planned. But Jana, I think, again, I know that what we're talking about isn't rocket science here, but you and I see it so often where I'm sure it's not just lawyers, it's a lot of business owners, but they're just very reactive, right, to the situation. And so I'm not trying to be like necessarily critical here, but my experience has been there is a lack of planning. There is a lack of, here's what I'm hoping to do next quarter, the quarter after, here's what I'm hoping to do in the next 12 months. Is that kind of your experience? Would you word it any differently? And how do you feel like this can help?
I do. I think that there are a lot of plans with a lot of the attorneys I talked to. There were a lot of initiatives that they know that they eventually want to implement, but then the facilitation of that is always the question. Is, do I do that internally? Do I even outsource that? Where do I fit it in between all of my cases? And so having these, I love the idea of the placeholders and just even knowing, internally for Spotlight Branding, we know we want to do a certain number of events over the course of the year. We may not know exactly which events those are going to be that we go to, which different trade shows, but we'll pencil in, okay, in Q2, we probably want to do at least a couple. If we need to move those because there aren't any to go to, that's completely fine. But it almost adds a layer of accountability. I feel like even with the tasks that we have internally at Spotlight Branding, the more that I move something, every single time I move it, I'm like, oh, I really need to get to that. So even if it is something that kind of gets pushed, I think having it there written down will help you stay accountable to actually getting it rolled out more so.
That's actually a great point. We've been talking for years at Spotlight Branding about rolling out a program that would be free, where we would do email newsletters for local bar associations. Right? It'd be good marketing for us, and it'd be a great way to serve the legal community with something we already do well, which is email newsletters. And but it takes some effort. It really doesn't cost money. It just takes manpower, right? And we've had that on our marketing plan for a while, and we've dabbled with it in some quarters, and weren't able to give the energy to it that we wanted. So then we pushed it to the next quarter, or sometimes even 4 quarters out, right? But something like that never gets lost. We have made traction on it. If you're listening and you're part of a bar association and you would like us to do a free email newsletter for them, shoot us an email.
Please.
info@spotlightbranding.com and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. It really actually is a free newsletter. So I think that's a great point. And also the point you made about placeholders, and placeholders don't even have to be specific. Jana, you commented like, you're looking at your marketing plan. This is the idea. Okay, guys, this is where the secret sauce is. And so I hope it's clicking if you're watching. I hope it doesn't sound like, I hope it's not, I'm trying to find my words here. Like, I'm almost a little worried that like, it sounds so simple that it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal. When you're sitting down to look at a marketing plan and you see these categories and you're looking ahead, you get the wheels turning in a way where all of a sudden you might go, yeah, you know what? I don't have a lot of budget right now, but I like in quarter 3, like I really probably could do more networking. I could probably join a few more associations or join a BNI or check out XYZ event that I haven't yet. Or you know what? I could put on a webinar or a workshop or try to get more involved in the community, right? Your marketing plan could even just say that you're hoping to have more lunch and coffee dates in a certain quarter, and you create a target for yourself, right? Or maybe you do have some budget, so you do start thinking through things like, maybe I should start doing Google ads here. Maybe I should start doing an email newsletter. Maybe I should get more serious about my social media presence, right? Like that's where the magic is of having a written marketing plan, is all of a sudden all these things start opening up. You activate that part of your brain that thinks about these things. And you end up getting this stuff down on paper, even if you just pencil in, I want to do more here, but I don't know what yet. Like you could literally put almost like an empty placeholder, right? Like we do this ourselves. Jana commented on it. We go to a lot of events, a lot of conferences, a lot of state bar conferences. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. But sometimes we look at a quarter or a month and this may be 7, 8, 9, 10 months out. And we go, you know what? We don't have enough marketing in this month or this quarter. So we're going to try to find another event to do, right? So we're just literally put in placeholder event. And then we know at some point we got to start exploring that, right? That becomes a to-do from our marketing plan, right?
Exactly. And maybe even if it isn't a placeholder that has a specific category, maybe this is a time when I'm a little bit less busy, and so you want it to be something where it has more of a time devotion versus like a financial or resource devotion. You're like, okay, I know I'm not as busy. I'm going to make sure I do those coffee networking engagements or go to some events. Or maybe you say, well, I know cash flow is actually pretty good during this quarter. So, something that I actually pay for is going to be great in here, and it doesn't have to be as specific. And you can kind of see as it gets closer to then what may be the best avenue for that.
Perfect. All right. So again, here's that template. So I just want all of you to kind of visualize with me. So you've got these categories, but in here we've got quarters, you might have months, but you start putting these things into those open boxes, right? Okay. If you're part of a BNI group or you're part of a bar association that meets every month, that should be in that networking category at the top, that should be in every box because that's happening every quarter. Right. But if in quarter 3, you want to maybe join a new networking group or a new bar association, write that in. Okay. If you're going to put on any of your own events or anything like that, you can put that down in the events category. Right. So you're going to start filling in these empty spaces. And certainly if you're running out of room, that's probably a good problem to have, just move to a spreadsheet or create a table in a Google Doc. It's that simple, and just make those sections bigger, but always fill it in. If something's happening every quarter, keep it there. Because the other magic of this that we actually haven't talked about yet is also some of those things that happen on an ongoing basis. Sometimes they need a little bit of a refresh. Sometimes they need kind of just be revisited like, hey, like, are we really getting the most out of this that we could? So maybe you've got that organization that you're part of, and you see it there, and it kind of causes you to give pause and go, am I getting the value out of that I want to be? Should I change up my participation somehow? Is there a speaking opportunity there? So even with our content marketing, every few years we like to maybe refresh the design of the email newsletter, and things like that. So this also helps kind of make sure that things stay fresh. And so I like to really see things repeating. So look, at this point, we've answered 2 of our 4 questions. What are we doing and when are we doing it? All right. And we've got it categorized by kind of these buckets, these channels, these categories of marketing. And we've got it, organized by quarter, right? And like I said, you could do monthly. So we're halfway home, but there's still 2 more pieces that I think are really important to making sure it's a strong marketing plan. And that next one is, how much is it going to cost? Okay. This is mostly a money question, but this is also a question around time or resources. So we can jump to the next slide, and I'll share a few thoughts here. And then Jana, you can kind of add in, but look, everyone's got a different budget out there, small, big, nothing, whatever it might be. But so let's start here. Like, even if you don't have a lot of money to spend on your marketing, I still want you to be thinking about time, because that is the trade-off. If you don't have a lot of money, you should have more time. And a lot of times as the firm grows, you might not have more time, although that can be solved through good hiring, good systems. We can do that on another webinar. And if you don't have the money for marketing and you don't have the time, that's also a separate conversation, but you do have to think about how to free up some time, because ultimately, you're going to have to invest time in order to grow your practice and do business development. But what I want you to do is kind of look at your marketing plan and kind of recognize that, okay, these things are going to cost me time. Okay. Networking, things like that. That's why if you think about what that slide we showed you guys way earlier with all the examples of marketing that you could be doing, and website redesign was on there, launching a podcast was on there. Those things are going to take up a decent chunk of time whenever you do them, right? So you might not want to, so putting website redesign on your marketing plan is valuable, because there might be things you don't want to do until after you do that. So you can kind of see that visual layout. And also, you kind of recognize, all right, well, I might not be able to redesign my website, launch a podcast, and add 3 new networking groups all in the same quarter, just depending on the time you have available, right? So treat time similarly how you would money, but absolutely do figure out the money, okay? What you're essentially doing here is budgeting. Okay. And if you don't know, just estimate, just guess. Even if you're saying, I hope to do Google ads, or I'm creating a placeholder for an event 9 months from now, just guess. Just guess. As you get closer, you can do the research into that thing and start to figure it out, right? But at Spotlight Branding, we budget as an entire company on a rolling 12 months. So we always have a 12-month budget in general. So we have to do that for our marketing as well. Okay. So do try to budget your marketing, have an idea of what you're going to spend each quarter. You can get there several ways. You can set an overall budget, and then you can try to fill it. That can actually be a good exercise. All right. A good rule of thumb is to spend 10% on marketing. To some degree, if you're not spending 10% each quarter, well, I guess 10% for the year, to be clear, of your annual revenue, then you might want to consider doing more marketing. Don't do something just to do it, but you might go, hey, I've got $5,000 to spend this quarter, and I'm only spending 2. Like I should probably try some things, right? And don't be afraid for something to fail as well. Marketing fails a lot before it succeeds. That's important to know. Not enough people talk about that. But try things. You're going to figure out what works, and then you can do those things. Okay. Or the opposite. Maybe you've got a million things you want to do. Put it all in there. make those estimations and see what the total number comes out to. And then you might have some decisions to make on whether or not you want to do all those things, and you can start prioritizing and you can move things around, right? So, but budgeting is key, and you gotta not only know when you're going to do something, but what do you think it's going to cost you?
We'll get into it a little bit more here in a bit too, but I think as you figure out what the actual amounts of both time and money that you're spending on campaigns are, document those. Very big fans of documentation here at Spotlight Branding. And so as you kind of have a better answer of what that looks like, making sure that you have that documented somewhere so that as you revisit it, you have that more solid estimate as you're kind of planning out in
Love it.
perpetuity.
That's a great tip.
I have a couple
Absolutely. All right. So the last step 4, what you think is going to happen. This is actually, we kind of saved the best for last. This is the one thing that almost no one does on their marketing plan. And I'm not talking about just law firms. Here's an honest assessment or an honest truth. A lot of marketing agencies don't even do this step. And honestly, everyone, the step isn't hard. I actually can't tell you. I was going to try to guess at like why I think a lot of businesses don't do this step, but I actually don't know. But look, what do you think is going to happen? That's the question you should answer for everything on your marketing plan. Or the better way to word it might be, what is it that you want to happen? Okay. So a few synonyms for this would be, what results you're aiming for? Or what is the goal of this thing? What are you projecting from this thing? All right. Not only is this valuable so that you have some idea of what these things are meant to accomplish, but this is also going to help you retroactively or even in real time assess performance, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Jana, you can jump to the next slide. Like here's kind of 4 steps to kind of think through how to do step number 4. So first thing to think about, whatever marketing you're thinking about, is it something that's measurable? Okay. And a matter of fact, is it something that where that measurable matters? Okay. Let's grab 2 examples. Okay. Let's actually use social media and let's use Google Ads. Okay. And more specifically, the social media example is going to be like just social media content, like your social media presence, because I would consider social media ads to be more like Google Ads. Matter of fact, we can even lump those together for the sake of this conversation. So, okay, can it be measured? Okay, Facebook ads, Google ads, 100%. A lot of things could be measured, right? Okay, even if you're not an ads expert, you probably know that we can measure things like clicks and conversions and impressions and all these things. But honestly, if you're doing Google ads or Facebook ads, yes, it's measured. And the most important measurable you care about is probably just going to be leads. And honestly, you can jump all the way to the end of this, in step 4, where you kind of land on what you're going to measure. So you might actually, for your Google ads or your Facebook ads, you might actually project leads. You might say, I'm going to spend this much and I hope it creates 10 leads or 20 leads. Okay. But let's go back to the social media example. Are there things about social media that are measurable? Yeah. Likes, followers, right? Views, comments. First of all, be very clear. We're not suggesting on your marketing plan that you come up with every measurable that you can think of for every piece of marketing you're doing. That would be such a long list. And if you really want to do that, do that somewhere else. But your marketing plan, you're just trying to identify, what's the main thing this marketing needs to accomplish? What's the goal? What's the projection? So we kind of moved to, so here's the thing with social media, achieving followers or achieving likes, just, I would argue isn't the most important thing. Okay. So, my brain's going to move to step 2 and go, okay, not all marketing is easily measurable. And hopefully you see that with the example we're giving here between social media and ads, right? Ads are very easily measurable, but the true value of social media isn't, because even though you could measure your followers and your likes and things like that, how do you measure the value of that to your firm? All right. It's pretty easy to measure the value of leads to your firm, because you can start looking at how many of those leads became clients, how many of those leads were good leads, and so forth. Okay. So in step 3, we actually have kind of a list here of examples of a variety of places that value can come from in marketing. There at the top of the list, it could be new clients or leads. But as we start moving down the list, we start to realize that not every single piece of marketing you do directly leads to more leads or more clients. Some marketing you do might be more about building your reputation, which helps get new clients. Some marketing you do might be about staying in touch with your referral sources and your existing contacts so that you generate more referrals or more repeat business. Sometimes that marketing that's about branding and reputation is about attracting better clients, higher paying clients. Okay. So when you start to kind of expand your mindset of what marketing can accomplish for your firm, you also are able to better set these goals. So going back to that social media example, there's a few different goals you could pick from. But for example, you might look at social media and say, the goal of social media is to help us stay more connected with our existing network. So now social media is not even about getting more clients or more people finding you on social media, if they're even looking for attorneys on social media. Now your social media is just about actually staying more in touch with your existing network. Or to be honest with you, for a lot of law firms, it's really about just checking the box. It's about making sure that when someone does find you or is referred to you, okay, or does come from an ad somewhere, not on social media, and they start doing their due diligence, they start doing their research on you, they go to your website, they look you up, and then they see that you have a social media presence. And now that's building brand and credibility in their mind, versus the law firm that doesn't have a social media presence, or the law firm that does, but the last time they posted was 3 months ago, right? Or even a month ago, right? Like what, so you might have, jumping to the last step there, the point we're trying to make here is that with something like Google Ads, you might have a projection, a numerical projection. But for something else, like social media, or another example might be like if you're putting on like a local event, like a community event, your goal might just be to kind of get more involved in the community, right? So you just write that as your goal. So then the whole team knows why you're doing that thing. And after you do that event, you can actually take inventory and ask yourself, do we actually feel like we're more part of the community? All right. That's going to be a subjective answer, but it's still, how you want to look at it. As where your Google Ads, you're going to have an actual numerical goal you set. Okay. And so then you can look at that goal and figure out if you hit it. And I think on the next slide, we talk about this, right?
I believe so.
Oh no! So we got the template one more time. So we've got a little section in there. I don't know if you can highlight it with your mouse for budget and results. But again, this is kind of small. If you can't fit what you need to in there, do your own. But we wanted you to see that we put these sections on our template to make sure that you're not just answering what you're doing and when you're doing it, but you're also answering what's it going to cost and what are my results. I thought we had another slide. Oh no, it's in the. Oh no, perfect. This is the slide I was looking for. Sorry.
Perfect. You're good.
Awesome. But these projections are also about you assessing performance, right? So, and here's the thing: if you didn't hit the projection or you didn't hit the goal, it really means one of two things. Maybe that thing underperformed. Okay, so you have to decide moving forward if you can accept those lower results, or if you have to change how you're doing that thing. We call that optimizing, right? Or you might get rid of that thing. But here's the other thing. If you didn't hit your goal or your projection, again, whether your goal was a sentence or a number, Maybe that's just because your expectations were off. Maybe you were shooting in the dark. I've told you this whole time, if you're not sure, just guess. And that's okay. But at least now, when you guess at a goal, you can come back and you can look at what actually happened and you can analyze, okay, here's what happened versus what I thought was going to happen. And why is there a gap there? Right? Did I think this was going to happen just because I was guessing? Okay, that's fine. My guess was way off. Let me refine my projections here, and we'll decide if this thing is still worth doing. So hope that clicked for everyone. But deciding what you hope something accomplishes, even if it's vague, right? And then you could get more specific over time as you do that thing more. It's just so important, and so many businesses don't do this. Right. So you're looking at a marketing plan, but you can't just look at a marketing plan and say everything on here is meant to get more clients, because you can't measure every piece of marketing by that solely. Even if you wanted to, you literally can't. Because you just can't connect the dots on every piece of marketing back to that. And I'd love to explain that, but I also want to make sure I get everyone out of here on time.
I was just going to echo that and say, yes, I don't even know that you should want to. And I always go back to the example of like a logo or a business card. That is something that a lot of times you are putting finances behind, but it is virtually impossible to track the return of investment on those efforts. And so there are going to be elements of that. And it's a conversation I have a lot of, what are the true like numbers and results that I may get from these efforts. And a lot of times it is really difficult to attribute and quantify those for some of these, but don't be afraid to incorporate those into your marketing plan, because they are necessary a lot of the times and really beneficial.
Appreciate that. All right, we've got a bonus fifth step that we're gonna finish on. We told you guys at the beginning that there were 4 steps to your marketing plan.
Go ahead.
But listen, here's the thing I hope all of you take away from this. All right. A shitty marketing plan that's written is better than the perfect marketing plan in your head. Okay, so I hope you take what you've learned so far from this, and you either create a written marketing plan or you take the one you already have and you refine it, even if it's not perfect, even if the categories aren't perfect or the goals and the projections aren't perfect. A shitty marketing plan that's written is better than the perfect one just sitting there in your head. All right. But let's wrap up here in a minute. We still got a couple of good nuggets for you, so don't leave yet. We told you that there's 4 key steps, but there's kind of a fifth one there at the end. So those first 4, we've already talked about them. What marketing you're doing, when are you doing it, how much is it going to cost you, and what do you think is going to happen? But then here's the key to it all. Step 5, you monitor this and you repeat. Okay, so you create this marketing plan. You pencil in these things you want to do. As you're doing them, you monitor. All that means is either when you're doing something or after you've done it, you come back to your marketing plan, you look at your budget, you look at your goal, your result, your projection, and you just assess, is this thing or did this thing do what I was hoping it was going to do? Did it cost what I was hoping it was going to cost? Right? And then from there, you optimize, you tweak, you change. Sometimes that might be revisiting your own expectations, right? Sometimes it might be actually changing what you're doing. Okay. And then the other aspect of that is that you repeat this process. So at Spotlight Branding, we're tweaking our marketing plan all the time, but we purposefully sit down once a quarter towards the end, and we update the written marketing plan by adding a new quarter, right? Which would be, basically almost a year out. And then also revisiting the things that we've already penciled in for the upcoming quarters. Do we still want to do these things? Has anything changed? Is there anything, even if something's 2 quarters away, is there something we have to start preparing for it now? Right. And so once you create this the first time, you're just monitoring, you're just repeating, and you're maintaining that cadence.
And what great timing as we come up on the end of Q2 to go ahead and start, even with the marketing plan. You can just start right there with Q3 and then just go into Q1 and 2 of 2025. And
it is
like we planned it.
It is. All right, I think we got one or two more small little nuggets, right? Okay, yes,
Oh,
perfect. So
goodness.
listen, if you do want any help with your content marketing, okay, because that's the piece of your marketing plan that we do. We are actually giving away 2 free months of marketing right now. So things like blogs, social media, videos, email newsletters, that's our niche, that's our focus. So just go to spotlightbranding.com/schedule if you want to meet with us. If you sign up before the end of June, then you get your entire first 2 months of services for free. And so today's date is June 13th. If you're listening to the recording and you're interested in this and you're close up against the deadline, reach out, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate. But we did want everyone to know who's here live today or listens to this soon, that if you do want help with the content side of your marketing, we've only done this promotion once or twice in the past where it's 2 months for free. So now is a great time. If you do want help with the content side, just go to spotlightbranding.com/schedule. But aside from that, I hope everyone found value from this presentation. Again, if anybody wants that marketing plan template, it's free. Just go to spotlightbranding.com/marketing plan.
Correct.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a free template. If you do want to talk to us, go to spotlightbranding.com/schedule. Please give us your feedback. Let us know in the chat here what you liked, or if there's anything that you want moving forward. If you're watching the recording, you can give us feedback on social media. You can email us at info@spotlightbranding.com. But listen, we create this content for you, no strings attached. So if there are aspects of the marketing plan you want us to dive more into, let us know, right? If there's something else happening in your law firm, marketing related or potentially otherwise, let us know. And we can do a webinar around that. If it's something we're not experts in, we can bring in a guest. So, please let us know from, we want to hear from you all. What do you like? What's working for you? What's not working? Where could you use help? That feedback is critical. So please put it in the chat, hit us up on any of our socials, fill out the contact form on our website, whatever works for you. We want to hear from you so we can be creating better content for you. All right. That's part of our marketing plan, is to create educational free content for you. So help us do that well. So Jana, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see everyone next time.
All right.